I made the mistake of going to a strip club, and I met the ultimate femme fatale. I came home one day early, and she was all messed up on drugs. She finally said, I'm willing to go, but will you try it once with me, just so that you can know how it feels and why it's difficult for me to sort of get off this stuff.
Also, when she's hot.
Yeah.
She's hot.
Yeah, absolutely. As I said, she was very persuasive.
The Kid Carson Show is taped at MindfulMEDS Studio inside Conscious Lab, downtown Vancouver, Canada. This episode powered by PHMX.
People are going to be able to come spend a week with us, and it's going to be the most epic week of their life.
To learn more, find the link in the show notes.
Thanks for coming.
My pleasure.
I read your story, I guess maybe about a month ago.
Okay.
When you were talking about your new book that's coming out or that's out now.
Yep.
When it comes to someone hearing the word crack,
right?
They definitely they paint a different picture.
Yep.
You don't think a guy who founded Sleep Country Canada.
Yeah.
So can you tell us how this started?
Sure.
Maybe a quick little 30-second recap of your success, so people who haven't heard your name before,
right,
understand really who you are, what kind of a titan of business you are in Canada. Really, I mean, everyone knows the jingle.
Right.
Why buy a mattress anywhere else?
Yeah.
That was your company. I
had an early business career in retailing and management consulting. That morphed into setting up an investment banking firm, a boutique investment banking firm with a partner called Steve Gunn. And he and I did some leverage buyouts. And one of the buyouts that we did was Simmons Mattress Company in 1990. So we bought that company and got to know all about the mattress industry from the manufacturer side, and got frustrated with the manufacturer's inability to basically increase their market share because they were highly dependent on selling through department stores. And we felt the department stores didn't do a very good job of basically serving the customer and presenting an assortment that was compelling. So we came up with the idea of a specialty retail chain. And to mitigate, the risks of a startup, because there are huge risks in terms of any startup, we developed a business plan and basically showed it to 10 of the best specialty mattress retailers in the States. So I went down and met with each one of them, showed them my business plan, and asked for their comments and suggestions, and what have you learned and what can you help us understand better. So through that process, we came back and said, this it looks like it works. I've got a heavy background in retailing. So we're going to launch the thing. So we sold our interest in Simmons Mattress to our other investors, and actually the other investors basically demanded that they allow to invest in Sleep Country because they were really confident in Steve and my ability.
Right.
So that's how the company started, and we recruited Christine McGee. We had met her. She was a banker for a National Bank, and she had basically represented the National Bank in some of the leverage buyouts borrowing that we did. So we got to know her from a business point of view, and then a social point of view. We'd known her about probably for 6 years, probably. And so I met with her one day and said, we're going to start this company. How would you like to be president and the public face of the company and actually run the company? And that's how the three of us got together.
Kind of genius, because everyone's talking now about personal branding.
Yeah.
And having a face. People want to buy from a face. They feel this sense of trust with a brand.
Yeah.
You guys were OGs in this.
Yeah.
Just hearing the name Christine McGee is so much of my high school years, my formative years.
Yeah.
Just the name. I wonder, what is she doing now?
She's still the chairman.
She's still there?
Yeah. The company was sold to Fairfax Financial in October last year for $1.7 billion,
wow.
believe it or not. And she stayed on as chairman, so she's still involved.
Yeah, but not on the commercials anymore.
No, I think she appears once in a while in sort of a cameo.
A special guest, yeah. Which is smart, because we're all grown up now, buying stuff every time we move apartments. That's cool. Okay, so can we talk about how someone like you, all the success, I mean, things are just going amazing. This happens,
yep,
where you end up getting addicted to crack cocaine.
Right. So one of the things, I've been a workaholic for a long time, and people like us and company founders are typically risk-oriented or risk-prone, and we live a high-stress life. And that's why a lot of, high stress, high performing individuals get into some sort of addiction, because they're looking for some release, like in terms of just a break from the stress. And I was traveling back and forth from Vancouver to Seattle every 2 weeks to meet with the advertising agency that we were working with. And I was down there on a trip, and I ended up having to stay overnight, and I hadn't planned it, and I didn't have any work with me. And I said, well, this is a great time to relax. So I made the mistake of going to a strip club, and I said, this is great. I've been to strip clubs before. I can sit in the corner, listen to the music, and nothing else matters, kind of thing. And I met the ultimate femme fatale. And so she and I got together every couple of weeks when I was in Seattle for about a year. It happened. So it wasn't a serious romantic relationship, but it was a fun experience for me. It was a vacation, if you like.
Yeah, you're telling me.
Yeah.
Right.
No. And then she showed up in Vancouver one weekend and told me she was moving in. And, that was a complete shock to me. I didn't invite her. But she was very persuasive, and I said, okay, we'll give it a try for a couple of months and see how it goes. And within a month of basically living with her on a daily basis, I came home one day early, and she was all messed up on drugs, and she broke down and admitted that she was a cocaine addict, and she'd been an addict since she was 17 years old.
Wow.
And she was now 28 years old. So anyway, so I said, I've got a really busy life. I'm, running all over the place. I've got responsibilities. I can't have the added stress of having you, at home, wondering what's happening. Are the drug dealers there? Are the cops there? That's just not going to work for me.
Yeah.
And she basically she finally said, "I'm willing to go, but will you try it once with me, just so that you can know how it feels and why it's difficult for me to sort of get off the stuff." And she wanted me to be more empathetic. And I sat there and said, sure, I can do cocaine. I've seen it in the movies and seen it on TV. It's not a big deal.
Yeah.
And
also, when she's hot.
Yeah.
She's hot.
Yeah, absolutely. As I said, she was very persuasive. So, and with all of the sort of high-powered stuff that I've been successful at, I got into the point in my life where I thought I was invincible, like nothing was gonna take me down. And so I said, sure, that's not a problem. We'll do this, and then you leave. And unbeknownst to me, I thought doing cocaine was snorting cocaine. And we sat down on a Friday night, at the kitchen table, and she handed me a crack pipe, and we ended up smoking crack. And I'd never even heard of crack at the time.
Hey guys, it's Kid. If you're serious about getting known before AI makes personal branding almost impossible, you're going to love this. Step into a premium interview experience with Kid Carson. That's me. And collapse time on your growth. We're going to tap into my network, skyrocket your exposure, and help the world fall in love with you. I really do pride myself on making you shine. That was always my favorite part of my radio days, having a new author in or having a local business owner in and just making them shine. And getting the email 2 weeks later like, Kid, thank you. This happened and that happened. And I honestly, I love that. I love getting the big names in here too, don't get me wrong. Joe Dispenza, 50 Cent, Eckhart Tolle. I got to interview Chip Wilson. That's amazing. But I'm also really obsessed with talking to the up-and-comers who know they have a powerful message for the world. So if that's you, go to kidcarson.com/promo. If your message can help this amazing community who listens to this podcast, then, this might just be a great fit. So hope to see you soon. Find the link to find out more in the show notes. And now back to the episode.
I had an instant sort of massive euphoric reaction to it. And it turns out I've learned since then that people's body chemistry is different and people react differently to different drugs. And my body chemistry reacted very positively to cocaine. And I've met people who've done cocaine and it's not a big deal. They take it or leave it kind of thing. But so it was massively euphoric, like nothing I'd ever experienced before. And after, 20 minutes, half an hour, the effect wears off and the immediate reaction is, well, I want to do that again because that felt so great. And we ended up partying for the whole weekend. And I drove to work on Monday morning And I was thinking, wow, I can party on the weekends. That was a lot of fun. It's not a problem. And what a great way to sort of relieve my stress, on weekends.
And she's not getting kicked out.
No.
Yeah.
No, she earned the right to stay.
Yeah. And what year would have this been?
This was in 1996.
1996.
That it started.
Okay.
So within 6 months, I was getting to the point where I thought I might have a problem. And, part of my success is I was traditionally a great problem solver, both business-wise, and people would come to me with their personal problems, and I was the great listener and empathetic, and I would help them out. But when it came to my own problems, I didn't know what to do. I knew you could go to treatment, but if I went to treatment, I'd have to admit that I might have a problem. So I crossed that line from sort of a recreational user to an addict. And what I've learned subsequently is that when you cross that line, what happens is basically the 3 C's of addiction. So you have a compulsion to use, you're unable to control that compulsion, and you ignore the consequences of the using. So I crossed that line and just kept using, and then within a year I was shooting up cocaine with her.
Wow. Did you even think that there would be consequences? Like at that stage when you just crossed the line?
I didn't know what the consequences would be. As I said, I was focused on day to day, and I said, well, I really have to focus on how do I get to work, get my work done, and still basically not disclose the fact that I'm starting to sort of crumble here.
Right. And so once you cross the line, then you're getting high like before you go to work.
Yeah, well, not before I go to work, but it was the kind of thing where, we started out partying on weekends, and then the weekend started to creep into Monday, so I wouldn't get to work until Tuesday. And then sometimes the weekend would start on Thursday instead of Friday night. And, it sort of just, it creeped incrementally, which is what happens with a lot of people in addiction. They start, and then it slowly gets worse and worse, and all of a sudden, you've got a problem.
Yeah.
So
that makes sense that the weekends would just get a little bit longer.
Yeah.
And then you start the weekend earlier, and next thing you know, it's you got 2 days where maybe you're holding it together on like a Tuesday, Wednesday, maybe.
Yeah. And the reason I was able to carry this this charade off is that Christine and I split responsibilities for the company. And she was running, the administration, the financing, the warehousing, distribution, the store operations, and she did all the PR work. And I did, the advertising and marketing stuff. I did the real estate and construction. And so most of my contacts were people outside of the company, not people inside the company. So a lot of my work was not actually in the office. So I wasn't going to the office on a day-to-day basis to get my work done. So I was able to basically just in many cases lie about where I was when I couldn't actually make it to work.
Yeah.
And because we were opening across the country, I would tell people, in Vancouver that I was in Toronto, and I would tell the people in Toronto I was in Calgary, and the people in Calgary I was in Seattle, and I was all the time I was at home getting high kind of thing.
Wow, yeah.
So it was just this massive set of outrageous lies to sort of cover up my behavior. But I was still able to get my work done. And, there's a phrase that they use called a high-functioning addict, and I was a prime example of a high-functioning addict. I did excellent work because I could focus. Cocaine gets out of your system, relatively quickly. So, if I could, get a good night's sleep, I could go to work for 2 or 3 days and seem fine and get all my stuff done.
Was there a particular moment that popped up that suddenly... It was like, okay, the funny games are over.
Yeah. So this carried on. As I said, I started using in 1996. By May of 1998, it got to the point where I didn't think I could hold it together, and I was terrified that people would find out that I was messed up. So I took a medical leave of absence, and I phoned Steve Gunn, who was basically operating the Ontario business, and said, I'm going to take a medical leave, and I'll be back at work on Labor Day in September. And my thinking was, I'll have 3 months, no work stress. The girlfriend had gone by then, so I'm isolated, but I'll be able to get my act together. And what happens, most addicts isolate, and when you're isolating and there's no pressure on you, I just kept using more and more and more to the point where I was shooting up literally every day.
Wow.
And so it just got worse and worse and worse. And as the deadline that I had sent became closer and closer, I just get, more and more messed up because I couldn't handle the stress of what am I going to do? What am I going to do? So 2 days late in terms of showing up for work, I finally phoned Steve Gunn in Toronto, and I broke down and I told him I've got a drug problem, a cocaine problem. And I thought he was going to go, off the deep end and get really upset and, yell and scream, and probably because that's what I would have done if I was in his shoes.
Yeah.
And he surprised me. He said, "I'm really sorry. What can I do to help?" And so I never expected that kind of compassion from anybody, let alone him, and I didn't think I deserved that kind of compassion. Like he just sort of crushed me, So
I can see you getting a little emotional now just remembering it.
Yeah. This is 25 years ago, but it's still an important sort of moment in my life, and so at that point, it was like I was drowning in an ocean of misery and despair, and when someone offers you a lifeboat, you take it. And he said, I'll help you. And I said, fine. Like I didn't ask for help, but I sure surrendered because it was surrender or kill myself.
Mm-hmm.
So he helped me get into treatment. I went to treatment for 3 months. A nice facility in Toronto. Had some challenges there because I was used to telling people what to do, and I wasn't used to having people tell me what to do.
Yeah.
So it was quite an adjustment, but I learned a lot of things, and the most I think important thing I learned is that, and this happens to quite a few addicts and alcoholics, when you finally stop drugging and drinking, you figure you're okay. But what happens is then the latent mental disorders that you've have been lurking in the background come to the surface. So I remember talking to the addictions doctor, and he said, "Well, you're clean and sober, but you're a little bit bipolar, you're a little bit narcissistic, you're suffering from PTSD, you've been clinically depressed for probably most of your life." And I'm sitting there, Jesus, like.
So you win a contest or something?
Yeah. I said I figured my problems were over with getting off the drugs. So a good part of my recovery was really focused on handling or dealing with my mental health problems.
Hey guys, it's Kid. I know a lot of you know this. Some of you don't, though. I mean, government money is fiat. Gold is real money. When you learn the difference, your jaw will drop. Start your Soundmoney Wallet. Trust me, now is the time to start getting hip with this stuff. Soundmoney Wallet is expanding to more countries every week. People are moving their savings out of the big banks and they're moving them into a Soundmoney Wallet. But why? It's physical metals, not paper promises, okay? You can access it instantly, liquidate it if you need to in a pinch, buy, sell, all online. It's unbelievable. And it's physical gold and silver. Find the details in the show notes or just go to kidcarson.com/gold.
I guess maybe earlier in your career, becoming a workaholic.
Yeah.
Maybe that was your own way of sort of burying the other issues that you maybe had that didn't, I don't know if they're called issues, but whatever was off balance with you. Yeah,
they say that workaholics are basically trying to fill an emotional void by work. And I left home early, and I didn't have a particularly great home life. So I've been on my own since I was 16 years old. I was traveling with the carnivals for a couple of years, full time.
With the carnivals?
Yeah, I was a carnival worker.
Like you set up the games and you pop the balloon with the blunt, the dart that has no point on it at all?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, that's how I got my introduction to business.
Yeah.
And it was the first time in my life that I actually felt that I fit in somewhere because they accepted me. They thought I was a great carny because I loved the work, so I worked hard at it, and I was quite successful. They gave me my own games, I think, when I was 17.
Nice. What was the first big game you had?
It was a balloon game, a pull-a-string game, and I can't remember the other one. But
I love that you got 2 out of 3, though.
Yeah. Things are a long time ago.
Yeah.
But what stuck with me, I was 17 years old. I was running these games. I was paying my staff. I was paying for the prices, and I got to keep 10% of the take. And to me, it was like, I could swim with the sharks because I survived. And at the age of 17, for that 21-day CNE fair, I made $17,000.
Wow.
And that was, back in the 60s kind of thing. So I just got hooked on that whole, adrenaline rush of doing something, doing it well, and then making a bunch of money at it.
Right. So that was the first sort of, the chemical reaction you get from drugs. It's like suddenly this rush of, we can all imagine.
Yeah.
What would $17,000 be worth today?
Oh, I don't know, probably like 80.
So imagine 80 grand and you're 17 years old, and you made that within 2 weeks of the CNE.
Yeah. 21 days.
That is a rush.
Yeah.
Like, to put it in perspective.
Yeah.
And so after that, you're like, the business is my thing.
Yeah. And I've always been able to make, lots of money, not millions, but lots of money. So I've never ever suffered financially. I always found, places and ways that I could survive and prosper and be very, very comfortable.
Mm-hmm. So then fast forward all these years later, you're now clean and sober.
Yep.
How long does that take? Like, what's that process like?
So let me give you the true addict experience.
Yeah.
So I left treatment. I was a little bit resentful because they, what they hammer into you is that there's about a 10 to 15% chance of succeeding in terms of staying clean and sober. And I said, Jesus, I've spent all this money and you're telling me I've got like a slim chance of making it. And within a week of leaving, I came back to Vancouver, and Vancouver was a huge trigger for me. And I relapsed after a week. Wow. So what happened was Steve had phoned me because I was supposed to go to his New Year's Eve party, and he phoned me and said, like, are you coming? And I said, well, I really can't. And he said, are you messed up again? And I said, yeah, I am. And
good for you for saying that, because I kind of feel, just for admitting it again the second time.
Yeah.
I just feel like, because when I've messed up and I mess up again, it's then even doubly hard to admit it, because now you're like telling a story that I failed and I'm letting this person down, like all that stuff,
Yeah, I think I didn't think I could cover it up. Like I was supposed to be, active and doing things. So I made a deal with him. He said he's going to phone me once a week to make sure I'm alive, and if I wasn't back by the end of March, he was going to come out and get me. And so I would talk to him once a week. I'd tell him, What I realized is, if I'm going to get clean and sober, I have to do it for myself. I can't do it for other people. And a lot of addicts have that issue. They're doing it for their family. They're doing it to keep their job. There's all these reasons, but they're not doing it for themselves. And until they do it for themselves, they're really not going to be successful. And so, one day in the middle of March, I woke up after, a bender, and I didn't even think about what I was doing. I, put on some clothes. I went to the airport, hopped on a plane, went to Toronto. And as soon as I landed in Toronto, the compulsion to use was almost magically lifted. I think my body had enough, and my brain had enough, and I said, I just, I have to figure out a way to get over this.
Wow.
So I got to Toronto, I was at peace, to some extent. And then the first thing I did was phone the addictions doctor that I met in treatment and asked him if I could see him, because he was the only guy that I really connected with who I thought could help me. And he was the first guy that absolutely leveled me in terms of, there was no bullshit. I couldn't lie to him. I couldn't do anything. He nailed me every time I tried to, weasel out of something. Yeah. And he really, really helped me. So I phoned him and asked him if I could see him, and we agreed to, I saw him once every 2 weeks, and that went on for about 6 years, basically to focus on the mental health side of my issues. And then I started going to 12-step meetings, Cocaine Anonymous and Alcoholics Anonymous, and that was, almost a full-time job for the first year and a half or 2 years of my recovery, is working with the 12-step people because they helped me stay clean and sober, and then working with the doctor to work on my mental health issues.
Yeah, that's amazing that moment happened for you. Like, just sort of like, my brain's done. Because I just imagine, you said you have to do it for yourself.
Yeah.
But it must be hard to do it for yourself when you're feeling so shitty. And probably like just, you're not feeling good about yourself.
Yeah.
Then to love yourself enough in that moment to say, I got to do it for me. It seems like it would be a real challenge. Like you're at your lowest and now you've got to have the most confidence in yourself or love for yourself.
Yeah. And what happened, the day that I finally woke up and went to the airport, I had woken up with the intent of going to the airport, probably every day for the past 2 weeks kind of thing. But, I woke up and said, okay, I'm going to go to the airport. Now, what clothes do I have to pack and what kind of, what mail do I have to sort through and what are all the things that I need to do to get ready to go? And that I would just get frustrated because it was sort of like a mind-boggling, level of work and effort. And then I just ended up getting high again. So the way it worked was I got up and I didn't even think about it. I just went.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, you got to think, you got to plan, and your brain is just exhausted.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you just left with nothing.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah.
Like literally nothing, or just a toiletry kit or just your jacket.
No, just I put my clothes on. I remember it was a sweatshirt, an old pair of jeans, and some sneakers without socks. And I took my wallet and I went to the airport. I bought a ticket and I was gone.
Wow.
Yeah.
You had to do it that way.
I guess
you
so.
knew.
Yeah.
You knew I'm going to get distracted and I'm going to get frustrated and I'm just going to get high.
Yeah.
Wow. That's amazing. Did you say his name is Gary Gunn?
No, Steve Gunn.
Steve Gunn.
My partner, yeah.
That's pretty awesome. Is he still with the company?
No, he retired about 5 years ago.
Yeah.
He was the chairman after I was initially the chairman and CEO, and then he became the chairman to take care, to basically take over most of my work, and then Christine stayed as president.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty awesome. I just think to have a guy like that didn't freak out on you and, hey, I'm going to help you, like just that one person that you can tell freely, yeah, dude, I relapsed.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I told him freely. I didn't think I had a choice.
Yeah.
Like I just, and I worked with him and I had a tremendous, business relationship with him and a really good friendship. And I just couldn't not tell him. I just had to come clean.
Yeah. Wow. What did Christine McGee think?
I don't know. Because, I had all my communication with Steve.
Yeah.
Mostly because I'd known him for quite a while, and he and I were very close, and Christine and I were close. But when I thought about what I might say to her, I just couldn't mentally handle it. I just assumed she would be completely freaked out and just like, what the heck is wrong with you kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
I did finally have lunch with her about a year after I got clean and sober, and she was fine. She was happy that I made it through. And so things have been fine since then.
Mm-hmm. That's good.
Yeah.
Has anyone else reached out to you since you came public with this and released the book? There must be, because there's going to be a lot of people who are quietly suffering.
Yeah.
You don't have to give us names or anything.
No.
No. The CEO of this company, the president of this company.
So when I got clean and sober, one of the things that I did in the last week when I was in treatment is I phoned Steve and I said, I can't guarantee that I'll stay clean and sober, and so I can't go back to work. And so I'm going to resign. So I resigned, my position at Sleep Country, basically at the peak of my career. Yeah. So I was out of the company, and all of my business associates knew that I was gone, and so I took the time to chat with them. I had lunch with a bunch of them, and chatted on the phone, and I told them all what had happened. And the result of that was I started getting people calling me saying, I've got a daughter who's got a problem. Like, what can I do? And I've got my wife is messed up, or, I've got a workaholism problem.
Wow.
So those are the kinds of people that started to reach out. And I was more than happy, to give them the benefit of my experience and advice. Yeah. What's happened with the book coming out, is a lot of people have come out of the woodwork, basically old friends. I've had people from high school get in touch with me and say, dude, what did you do?
What did you do?
Yeah. So I've had a lot of that, and that's been fun just to catch up with people from my past, because when I retired finally in 2012, I became a bit of a recluse. I just, I'd had enough of the business. after I got clean and sober, I got into the television production business for 10 years. I started Listen Up Canada, which is a hearing healthcare chain, and I ran that until 2012. So I just figured, I'm done. I've made my mark, and I'm just going to go off and relax, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I've been a bit of a recluse, and because of social media now, people have been able to sort of track me down, and I've got a website, so they can find me on the website and then on Instagram and all that stuff. So and yeah, I met a gentleman last night at this event that I was at, who's probably 35 years old. He's came up to me after the talk, and he said, "Look, I'm an alcoholic. I've been clean or sober for four months, and I'm really struggling." And so I gave him my contact information, and I'm gonna talk to him and see if I can be helpful. So yeah, I've never said no when people have asked me for help in terms of addiction kinds of problems.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, it's funny because we always think the dark side of us, or whatever we're struggling with, is like something to be ashamed of, but it ends up being like the biggest connection point with people.
Yeah.
Because we're all suffering with something. Maybe it's addiction, maybe it's something else.
Yeah.
A bad relationship or whatever. It's cool that when you see someone else's darkness, it gives you permission to.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it makes you more human. Like if I just saw that you, this huge successful businessman like that, who's probably just, oh man, he's just got it made. He's living the life.
Yeah.
And then the version of you that's been vulnerable about this thing that you've gone through. It's like I love the guy more who went through the thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's happened. A gentleman who I hadn't talked to for probably 15 years got in touch with me. Turns out that he's living on Vancouver Island, which is where I'm living.
Yeah.
And he found out about my book, and he went and read the book. And we had dinner, and he said, "Well," he said, "Now that I know how messed up you were, let me tell you about my life." Right. And it was a relief for him to be able to talk about it, because he's like 65 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No way. And so when you were first telling people the full story, was it like, did you start right at the beginning? Like,
no,
I went to the strip club and I fell in love with the stripper. Like,
no, I'm not embarrassed by that, because it happened, but it's not something I'm particularly proud of.
Yeah. I mean, hey, I'll be honest. New Orleans, I'm not sure what year it was, late 2000s. Yeah. I went to a strip club with our whole like staff. Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, there was a girl I was talking to I could have easily fallen in love with. Yeah. I mean, you're getting played, but you're still like, the chemicals, they're flying through your mind, and this beautiful woman who's got a great, you know what I mean? They're sociable, and it happens. Well,
and what's interesting is a lot of people, quite successful people, their reaction to the book has been, that could have been me. Like I could see myself in your situation getting into that kind of trouble, and thank God it didn't happen, but that literally could have been me. And a number of people have said that. And what I tried to do in the book is, not talk about, my experience sort of from a third person sort of remote point of view, but I wanted to put people in my brain and in my shoes and let them experience what was going on. And that's why, the sort of brutal honesty was required, because, you can't sugarcoat a lot of stuff that happened.
Yeah.
And I figure, some people are going to be offended by this. A lot of people are going to be shocked, but that's life, and that was my life, and I'm going to tell the story.
Yeah. You don't have to answer this question, obviously. You don't have to answer any of my questions. No. But were you ever in contact with the girl again that you were living with?
So when she finally went back to Seattle, probably a year before I got clean and sober, before I went to treatment. And I went home, came home one day, and she said, "I'm going to go. Like I know I've messed up your life, and I'm really sorry, and I'm ready to leave." So I bought her a car, gave her $20,000, and I drove her back to Seattle. I took her to Seattle and bought her a car and gave her the money and said, "Okay, you're on your own. Like, you know what you have to do, and I hope things work out for you," kind of thing.
Yeah.
And she phoned me 2 weeks later and said, "I need more money." And I said, like what happened to the money I gave you.
Oh boy! And you're thinking, okay, what am I got myself into here?
Yeah, and she said, I got involved with a drug deal and it went bad, and the guys ripped me off, and I'm sitting saying, Jesus Christ. So what happened? That was the start of almost every 2 weeks her phoning and asking for more money. I said yes a couple of times, and I said, well, no, I'm not going to do that anymore. And she said, well, if you don't do it, I'm going to call the media up in Vancouver, and I'm going to call your business partners, and I'm going to call your family and tell them you're a drug addict.
Oh, shit.
And that you locked me away in your apartment and you took my passport. So I'm dealing with these threats, and of course, the only way I could handle it was to get high. Like, it just completely freaked me out. And then one day she made an outrageous demand in terms of money. She asked me, I think, for 50 grand or something at that point, and said if I didn't do it, she was going to have the Hells Angels put a contract on my daughter and my wife, my ex-wife in Toronto.
Is this in the book too?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and so I just, my brain exploded with that happening. And I because I'd been wiring money before, and I finally, got my brain together, and I phoned her up and I said, I have to take the money to you personally. I'm not going to, wire it. And then I phoned the Seattle Police Department and the DEA, and I had recorded some of our conversations on the phone, and I played them the conversations, and I said, do I have a case for, having her charged with extortion? And they said, yeah. So I cleaned myself up for a couple of days. I drove down to Seattle. I went to this, seedy motel room, and she was in there with a couple of bikers, with a kilo of cocaine on the bed.
Oh, so the biker threat was real.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'd known she'd known bikers before because she didn't introduce me to a couple of them.
Dude.
So
your brain, I would have just fainted. I would have just passed out.
Well, my mindset at that point was, you've crossed the line, and if you're going to screw with me, I'm really going to screw with you. Like, this is the end.
Yeah.
So I went in. I gave her an envelope with 10 grand, not 50 grand. She said, "What's this?" And I said, "It's the last that you're going to get." And I took out my tape recorder. I said, "Here's a tape of you threatening me on the phone. I've played this for the police, and they told me I have a case for extortion. If you ever call me again, you're going to be in serious trouble."
And the bikers are in the room too?
Yeah. Yeah. And I when I left, I turned to them and I said, this girl, I didn't use that term, is going to get you guys into a lot of trouble.
Oh, how hard was the word? Was it the B word?
It was the C word.
Oh, yeah, it's valid in this situation.
I never used to talk like that, but having, a toxic relationship with her for 2 years really changed my vocabulary.
And so what did you say to the guys? You just said, hey, listen, this.
Yeah, I said, she's going to get you guys into a lot of trouble. And when I left, I was, on the highway driving back to Vancouver, and I called the DEA guy and said, there's 2 bikers, a kilo of cocaine, and this girl, and where they are in this hotel, this motel in this room right now. If you want them, go for it. And I never heard from her again. So
wow.
Yeah.
I love that you turned to the bikers and said, this girl's going to get you guys into some trouble.
Well,
they were just probably like needed someone to tell them that. You know what I mean?
oh yeah, and
I find that so humorous for some reason. You're telling the bikers to stay out of trouble, man, and then this girl's going to get you in trouble. Oh, wow! What a story.
Yeah.
So you were really dealing with a lot of stuff before you. Yeah. No wonder it sort of the going through this addiction was excelling at such a rapid rate.
Yeah.
To the point where you just couldn't even hold yourself together. Because the stress must have been just beyond.
And the solution to being stressful and freaking out is just get high, because when you're high, like, nothing matters. All the problems go away.
Yeah.
Temporarily.
So what's the overall moral of the story here? Is it just stay away from strip clubs? Or is it when someone says, just try it once, that's a bad idea? What's the real big takeaway here?
The takeaway is that no one is invincible. Everybody is at risk. And things can happen to you that you don't plan, that you don't think about carefully, and if you're not careful, you can get yourself into a situation that becomes unmanageable. And particularly with what's happened with drugs these days, people are taking cocaine that ends up being laced with fentanyl, and they die. Yeah. And if you take a microgram of fentanyl, you can die. So sometimes if you try it once, it might be the last time because it'll kill you. So that's really the message that I'm trying to get out there, is that no one is safe, and you really need to be aware of what you're doing and what the risks are. And if you think you're invincible, you're going to get into trouble.
That's the most awesome message, because it just strips the stigma down of who we think would be someone who would get addicted to crack. Yeah. It's funny when anyone says something like, "Oh, I would never do that." Yeah. I always think, if all the power went off for a month, you'd be amazed at things you might do that you never would have thought to make sure you can feed your kids. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Yeah,
for sure.
When there's mayhem on the streets, and like you've seen the zombie movies, there's things you'll do. Yeah. So none of us are immune to doing anything really. Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Well, good for you, man. This was really cool to have this conversation with you.
Thank you.
Is there anything that I failed to ask that you that's something you'd like to share with people?
One of the things that happened to me, I had a lot of challenges in the 12-step community for a couple of reasons. One of them was that 6 months after I got clean and sober, we sold Sleep Country for the first time. And I had a few $1 million in the bank. And as my therapist said at the time, someone new in recovery who's a multimillionaire is like a complete disaster that's going to happen. And I became a target. People wanted money. People were hitting me up. I got into a couple of business deals that I shouldn't have because I felt sorry for people. But they turned out really bad. The other thing that I stopped going to 12-step meetings about 4 or 5 years in, because I got really frustrated with the amount of whining that happens and the victimhood that still, sort of permeates a lot of those meetings, particularly with newcomers. And I would become quite strident. And when people would start to do that, I would sit there and say, look, as long as you think you're a victim, you're never going to get clean and sober and stay that way. So if you're a victim, you're not taking responsibility. If you're not taking responsibility, you're never going to clean your life up. So that's a real message for people in early recovery is, you're no matter what happened to you, whether it was, you were sexually abused or any other range of stuff, all of those excuses of why you used, doesn't matter. Like, you are who you are today. You're not a victim, and you're responsible for taking care of yourself. And the thing about addiction is it's a chronic disease that is treatable, but it doesn't mean you have a character defect. And so addicts frequently make bad decisions and frequently do bad things, but it's in service of satisfying their addiction or getting more drugs. But they're not bad people.
Do you have a routine or a motto or some mantra or something, some way that you just keep yourself like this?
No. What happened to me, as I said, I got back into a business situation, which was good for me, because my therapist kept saying, you're still young, you need to find something to do to keep you motivated and to give you some sort of purpose. And what happened over a period of time, and I don't know precisely when it happened, is that the whole addiction thing became further and further in the past, so I wasn't thinking about it, daily, weekly, or even monthly, to the point where, I basically never thought about it. It never sort of came up. And the irony of bringing this book out is that I'm now sort of reliving a lot of stuff and actually, rethinking a lot of, what happened in the past in terms of trying to understand my motivations. And, one of the things, again, that I've learned along the way is you should never ask an addict, why they're using drugs, because they don't know. They don't have the answer to the reasons. They can tell you what happened, which is what I did, but they can't tell you why. And so I'm starting to sort of think about some of those kind of issues now, but it's more of an academic exercise in terms of, I could see why, some of my motivations came from this or this or this.
Yeah. And how are you feeling otherwise?
I feel fine.
Yeah.
I said I'm relaxed. I haven't been at work since 2012. I'm living on the island. I'm living with my daughter. We've got a dog. It's a quiet life. I'm a bit of a recluse over there, and I don't mind that. I've always been a bit of a loner, so it's good. It's peaceful.
Yeah, amazing. Well, congratulations on the book.
Thank you.
And thanks for telling your story. I know you've been telling everyone's curious.
Yeah.
So I know it's hard to tell the same story a million times, but.
No, it's fine.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Gord.
Okay, my pleasure.
This is really awesome.
Okay, take care.
Cheers.
Hey, it's Kid. First of all, I'm so grateful you're here listening to this episode. I'd love to be able to share announcements with you, events, things coming up. Please join my email list from kidcarson.com.